What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswaves. So we've seen a bit of a resurgence recently for GameCube games coming up to modern times through way of remasters and remakes and doing pretty well. Now it appears we have some new information from the rumor mill around a certain remaster for the Switch that I think would get people pretty excited. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a surprising Persona announcement. That's right, a new game was revealed over the weekend, and it surprised people with the game itself and then also the platform that it's going to. And we're also going to be discussing what some are calling a secret project from Sony for PlayStation that has to do with NFTs. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with the Wii U and the 3DS. As we all know, 1 week from today, actually, those shops will be shutting down and taking with it a ton of different titles. And in fact, one person on YouTube, the Completionist, decided to just buy everything on both eShops. It's a really well done video, and I recommend it. It's linked down below in the sources. But after they went through and picked up all these different games, they had some totals to go over, which included 866 Wii U games, which came out to 1.2 terabytes. Needed an external hard drive for that one. 1,547 3DS games that came out to 267 gigabytes. All this totaling up to just under $23,000. Yeah, a lot of purchasing going on there, and I like the structure of the videos. Nice little storyline there from trying to accumulate all of the eShop cards, even inputting them, as that was an entire debacle there. It also shows just how many games are really going away in a week. So this is your reminder, if you're thinking about picking up any games on that eShop, now is the time to do it. There's also several sales going on currently. I'll also work to remind everyone once again as we get closer to that date in Newswave. Also, I made a video kind of going over Resident Evil 4 Remake reviews, as well as sort of the landscape of gaming in the first 2.5 months for 2023. Certainly leaning towards the remakes and the remasters being the highest scoring games. In fact, Metroid Prime Remastered, I think, went up a point to 95, and well, you can see Resident Evil 4 Remake doing pretty well, coming in at a 93. That's on 96 critic reviews. The split, 94 positive, 2 mixed, a whole bunch of perfect scores, including even a 100 from IGN, which makes sense. The game that was remade here is very good. So not a shocker that as long as Capcom didn't completely ruin the thing, it was going to come out as a pretty good game. And I am very excited to pick this one up on Friday. Playing the demo, while it was a small part of the game, it still at least gave you the idea as to what you're going to be seeing in the full game. And there were a lot of secrets and little hidden bits in there too. So exciting stuff to finally get a chance to play Resident Evil 4 Remake after first seeing it, to playing the demo, to now I'm just ready to pick it up. Oh, and as we are pushing towards the expected PlayStation showcase just ahead of E3, we are getting some small bits of information as to what we can expect there. One of which has to do with a big project from Naughty Dog that I think most of us assume will be shown during that showcase. We can see this posted up, though, this transcribed over on MP First from Neil Druckmann while he was on Kind of Funny, discussing The Last of Us show and then also getting into the realm of games with the multiplayer aspect being brought up. He says, The Last of Us multiplayer game is our next big title, and you'll hear much more about it later this year, and I'm stoked for it. There's also some discussion around Last of Us Part 3, but there's some speculation that maybe Naughty Dog is working on something a bit different out of the realm of kind of that gritty, serious tone, maybe something more fantasy related for their next project, that being after the multiplayer live service game, kind of like Factions or The Division, something like that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they have here, mostly just to see what Sony's vision and plan is going to be going forward with these live service titles. You figure The Last of Us live service is probably a big focal point and could give us an idea. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a certain remaster that we've discussed here on and off for the Switch coming from that GameCube generation, and that's F-Zero GX, which is an awesome title on the GameCube. And in fact, if you play it now in progressive scan mode, widescreen with an HDMI adapter, it looks great, and that's coming from a system that was released in 2001. Obviously, you can go to Dolphin and do all kinds of texture mods and different things to make it look even better, but just as it is base on the system, still holds up, I think. And 60 frames per second, Yeah, absolute joy to play. But the idea of it coming up to the Switch and having online multiplayer and yeah, improved visuals and all this would be really, really cool. And it's something that has been kicked around in the rumor mill, and now it appears we're starting to get more information when it comes to which studio, developer, would actually be creating this remaster. And this comes way of Nintendo Prime, who put out information that it is coming from Next Level Games. That absolutely exploded online, started to spread everywhere. And I think part of that is the idea of Next Level Games doing it, when you figure Nintendo would go out and get a porting studio or a studio that's done remasters. Think of like Grezzo or something there. But to get Next Level Games is interesting. I think because, one, they weren't involved in like the original development of this game. Remember, it was a collaboration between Nintendo and Sega. And in fact, it was built on the Super Monkey Ball engine, if I'm not mistaken, which is weird to think about. But also, I mean, look how smooth and that ran even on the GameCube at a higher frame rate there. So the idea of Next Level Games coming into that after Mario Strikers came out, and even before that with Luigi's Mansion 3, it's kind of odd to consider, but it's not impossible or anything. I saw some people saying, oh, it can't happen. Yeah, why not? I mean, Nintendo owns Next Level Games now. That's the big change, or the big variable here that has changed, is that that's Nintendo's studio now, not necessarily a contracting studio like it was previously. So it's possible Nintendo said, hey, you're in charge of getting F-Zero GX up and running as a full-on remaster, and we'll release it towards the end of the Switch's life, when there will be kind of that gap period where they have to fill in. Think of after Tears of the Kingdom, what on the Switch is going to be bigger than Tears of the Kingdom when it comes to critical reception, excitement, basically around gaming. It's going to be hard to top that. So you figure, as many are noting, that's probably the swan song for the Switch, and then there'll be other smaller releases like remasters or remakes that would follow up. And yeah, Metroid Prime 4, while I get it, I'm excited too, it's not Tears of the Kingdom, right? So that, to me, makes a lot of sense. You have your F-Zero GX, you have your Wind Waker, Twilight Princess bundle, and then they kind of move along to the next generation platform. But F-Zero GX by Next Level Games, yeah, I think it would go over fine. Next Level Games, while I wasn't a fan of Mario Strikers, I still recognize how talented they are at doing things like animations and visuals on, well, the Switch here. So I think just with the framework that's already in place with F-Zero GX, and then mostly coming in to refine it and bring it up to current standards on the Switch with online multiplayer, I think it'd be fine. But I am curious, because you figure they would be working on the next Luigi's Mansion, because that did so well, Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch. It's odd to think that Nintendo would say, okay, you got Mario Strikers, then you got to do F-Zero GX, and you got to do Luigi's Mansion 4, but who knows, maybe they bring in more personnel, maybe there's more support there with Nintendo now owning them. A lot of possibilities, but to me, we probably don't have to wait too much longer. I would assume F-Zero GX is getting lined up for reveal in the next probably 3 or 4 months, and I wouldn't be shocked if it came out later on this year. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll see if Next Level Games is indeed remastering F-Zero GX. Next up, we have a new Persona game that was announced over the weekend, and this surprised a lot of people, mostly because it was a new Persona game that, while it technically was announced under like a project name, there was no actual hint or anything towards it being just revealed this past weekend. But here we are, there's a new trailer that was released, and this was originally announced as Codename X in April 2021. All right, and this is Persona 5, The Phantom X. It's announced for mobile, and there has been some talks back and forth. It sounds kind of conflicting, though, that it would be going to PC later. It is a free-to-play game, though, with in-app purchases. So even though it may go to PC later, keep in mind, this is clearly designed for mobile, first and foremost, so you can kind of get the structure overall when it comes to the game having to push you towards gacha mechanics, right? Yeah, we'll see how all that turns out. But I will say, looking at the gameplay and the visuals that they've shown here, it does look like a Persona game, straight up. It's not like one of those weird ports where like, oh, it's got to work on a cell phone, let's do this and this to make it like function correctly. It just looks like a Persona game that you might expect to see on a console transitioning over here to phones. Now, this is being developed by Black Wings Game Studio. Perfect World is publishing it. It has involvement with Atlas and Sega, which obviously it's Persona, and it's currently announced for China. Not really sure if it's releasing worldwide. However, they will have like an early beta period here in the next week or so. But interesting to see Persona 5 get this spin-off as Persona 5X just for phones. But it also makes sense for, I'm sure, Atlas and Sega. Clearly, they understand how successful Persona 5 is, and they should be aware of that. So doing these spin-offs, especially having a spin-off prepared for just mobile phones and partnering with Perfect World to have this as, right now, a game released in China. Again, it makes a ton of sense for them when it comes to just making money, which is their primary focus, clearly. I still think we will see Persona 6 at some point. Probably a year or two from now, because they're still trying to get as much as they can out of Persona 5. We had the re-release again recently, and now we see this phone version. But hey, maybe it'll come out worldwide and people can check it out. I'm sure at the very least, because it looks like you have new characters there, an original story, diehard Persona fans would like to at least play through it and see how all of the narrative aspect plays out. So here's hoping, while it does release in China, it ends up coming out worldwide later on. Next up, let's talk about Sony and a new patent that was recently made public that had some alarm bells going off for people. A bit concerned here because it seems to show Sony experimenting and trying to figure out different things they can do with NFTs, which we just went over the Pokemon Company having a job listing looking for someone who is familiar with NFTs, Web3, blockchain, all these different things. And I'm here once again to tell you, all these companies are researching this in the off chance that NFTs end up becoming integrated with all different aspects of the digital world, the metaverse, and these sorts of things. If that ends up taking over, yeah, they don't want to be the ones who just forgot to hire a couple of people to at least look into what they'd be able to do there to make money. Anyway, you can see this patent that was published on March 16th from Sony, which you can see the title here, NFT Framework for Transferring and Using Digital Assets Between Game Platforms. While the publication date was March 16th, 2023, the international filing date was September 2022, and it also seems to have ties even going back to 2021. So it does make me think that this is potentially plans they had even for that PlayStation Stars program, where you had those little figures you would get and you had the trophy case that you would show off. If maybe they were looking at that as some form of NFT that would be transferable around different platforms. They did come out when that was first revealed and said, no, these are not NFTs. Like, they're very quick to jump on that. So again, it makes you wonder, oh, they had NFTs on the mind. But anyway, it is a full patent that appears to go over how they would transfer different aspects of a sword or an item, a skin, something you unlock, and then take it from one platform to another, which seems like a disaster on the development side. I mean, consider if you're, say, a developer who has a game that doesn't have a sword in it. I'm confused how an NFT from one that's a sword would go into another game that doesn't. So that just sounds like a whole situation on its own. But while people were, again, looking at this very concerned, we see patents all the time. They get filed and then published and nothing comes from it. And I look at this as maybe early plans for what PlayStation Stars could have been. And they just said, you know what, we're not going that route. We're not going to do the NFT thing. Maybe they looked into it a bit further. Maybe they realized that valuations were just ridiculously high and there was no point in jumping on board of that now, because you see it kind of crash currently, and that's probably where they left it. Not that they wouldn't revisit it down the road, because there is some utility where you can mark digital assets as unique, whether it's trading in a game that you bought off the digital store or indeed just trading it back and forth between people. So while we've seen NFTs be used for essentially Ponzi schemes and blowing up valuations for pictures of things, there is actual use cases when it's broken down to the foundation and described for unique and digital ownership. But for what it's been used for currently, I understand why Sony might have been like, yeah, not right now. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. These, of course, being developed by Insomniac Games. And a lot of people have at least been looking around trying to find any little bits of info that they can, especially for Spider-Man 2, since that's coming out this year. Like, we're assuming fall, which means September, October, somewhere in there. We're not too far off, about 7 months from this game releasing. And once again, I assume that's one of the big blowouts that's going to be at Sony's showcase, hopefully in May. But we did get a little bit of info when it comes to the dialogue in these games, which you can see this posted up. This is over on Twisted Voxel saying, speaking during a live stream session on Insomniac Games' official Twitch channel, lead engine programmer revealed that the studio's next game, likely Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and possibly even Wolverine, will feature some very cool dialogue technology. Now, no one's really sure what exactly they're referring to there with dialogue technology, and I had to think a little bit about it. I guess with the original Spider-Man, or Spider-Man on the PS4, and then Miles Morales, really when you're walking around on like the street level, like the different NPCs you run into don't really say anything that interesting. It feels kind of lifeless at times. Maybe that's a core aspect where they decided to try to make the city feel more alive, and the characters and NPCs walking around have more interesting things to say, or will react to what you're doing in different ways. I guess it's also possible there's branching dialogue paths, although that's not exactly what I would have been expecting to come out of Spider-Man 2, but maybe with Wolverine, I guess that's possible. But just something else to look forward to here, especially with Spider-Man 2 and even Wolverine. Hopefully we hear more about these games, and again, I assume we'll at least hear about one of them probably in a couple of months in May. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, when themes and backgrounds are available on a game system, do you use them and customize your console? 80% say yes, 20% say no. So, I mean, everyone changes their icon, or you have to at least have to pick one when you make an account on basically any system. I know a lot of this comes up with the Switch because it just has black and white theme selection, and that's it, and it's been like that since day one, so there's not a lot of customization with that system. I think with the Xbox Series, I changed the background so it could be like that original Xbox reactor core. The problem is they had all these icons everywhere and ads and stuff, and it just kind of blocks it out so you don't see it. But I think with the Switch, Nintendo more or less went that route so that they could keep it as lightweight as possible, because I also see a lot of people who go, I'm not trying to make a fashion statement, I just need to be able to get into the game immediately. And yeah, I mean, the Switch does that pretty well, but still, I think it'd be nice to have those customization options so you can make the system and the platform, the dashboard and all that look how you want and make it unique to yourself. So who knows, maybe with Nintendo's next system or platform, they introduce changing your background. What a time to be alive. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from the professor saying, if Sony was making a Superman game, I can imagine them starting the game having us flying through a bunch of rings at the start, which leads to Superman or Clark Kent waking up from a nightmare. There would absolutely have to be some sort of Easter egg just referencing flying through rings, or the Nintendo 64 game with the controls, and what a terrible game that was. But yeah, you would have to do something just to tongue-in-cheek play around with that, have some fun. And I would like to see an attempt, or a modern attempt, at a Superman game. Some of the technology we have in these different systems now, there could be some really cool stuff. But making a Superman game is difficult without going the Metroidvania route, where you just take away all of Superman's powers for some reason, and then you regain them as you go through, become ultra powerful at the end, and just destroy everything and win. Maybe that's just the tried and true formula, and the one to go with even for Superman. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was F-Zero Remaster. 1, would you be excited to see that get announced? And 2, do you think Next Level Games is developing that remaster? And then also, what about Persona 5 X getting announced for cell phones? And then Sony, PlayStation, NFTs. Do you think they're going to make a push for that with more of the digital collectible side to go along with their trophies? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.